available in the market in that my area. It's very easy to do now. You can go online and do a bit of research. And so I would research the kind of books that are in the market, and then I'll begin to get my own stuff together. I can remember for 1 whole year, I was eating, sleeping, and drinking books. Monday to Friday, except Thursday. Thursday, I would go for what you call community development. Okay, and so I didn't need to come to the office, but sometimes I would still come to the office after finishing, my community development, which involved going to the NYC center in the local government, do something, talk about our wages, nothing so important. And then, but throughout that 1 year, I was involved in publishing. The book I'm reading is called How to Profit from Your Knowledge by Writing a Book. It's about writing books, writing non-fiction books. If you go online, for example, one of the ways you can validate it is go on Amazon and look for similar books. Now, when you see many books doing the same thing, that means that your idea is worth something.
Author of the storytelling series for small businesses and content creators. In Obehi Podcast, we talk about the power of your story, your narrative, and why you should own your voice. Whether you are a small business owner, a content entrepreneur, or you simply want to build your influence, storytelling is probably going to be your best instrument to connect with your audience. So join the awakened few who are owning their voices. Now let's get started with today's episode.
My name is Sidney Sanni. I live in London in the United Kingdom. I'm originally from Nigeria, and I've been living in the UK since 2006, permanently in the UK with my family since 2006. My passion is in the area of publishing. Studied English at university in Nigeria, did my youth service, 1 year youth service in the publishing house, and that was my pivotal moment. Of course, as a young boy, I'd always dreamt of being a publisher. I thought, yes, I'll be a magazine publisher. So I always had this at the back of my mind, and spent a lot of time reading books, comics. And those days in the 70s and the 80s in Nigeria, we didn't have 24 hours TV. So obviously reading was very, very important. So after my youth service in Nigeria, still started out more like a freelance person, did some projects in publishing, worked with some legacy publishing houses, and then did some projects, like I said, that took me into some places in Nigeria. I enjoyed looking for people, interviewing them, just getting involved with books here and there. I'm an author as well, and written some books. I am a book coach, publisher, publishing consultant. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's who I am. That's what I do.
Tell me a bit about your young adolescent in Nigeria, because here we talk a lot about storytelling because it's actually the centerpiece of our existence here. We love storytelling. We believe that the storytelling is at the center of, or at least it should be the center of everything that we do. Because we tell story all the time. We should tell story all the time. We should love storytelling. So help us to understand you growing up as a young adolescent. Help us with that.
Yeah, that was very interesting. I have very good memories. My dad, worked in the civil service in Nigeria after I returned from studying in Europe. Incidentally, I was born when he was studying with my mom in the Czech Republic in Prague. So I was actually born in Prague. So came back to Nigeria as a young boy, and my adolescent years had to do basically going to school, coming back, and then I did a lot of reading. My dad, like twice or three times in a week, would go to the club. He was very athletic. He played lawn tennis, and so we would go with him to the lawn tennis club in southwestern Nigeria in Ibadan, your state. So at 4:30, and so he would play his game. While he played his game, I would go to the club, the bookshop, and I would browse around. I saw all of these books. I mean, I was like a child in a candy store. I would browse all of these books, Ian Fleming, James Hadley Chase, and I'll see all these comics. And I'll just see, then I saw things like all these different kinds of authors, many European authors, incredible. So I'll grab a book, and there was no time that my dad would not buy me a book. He's either on his way home, he will buy the book for me. The bookshop owner knew me for many years. He knew me, he was there for many years. So I'll buy the book, and I'll take the book, he would allow me, and on my way out, my dad will pay for the book. Or the next day, my dad will pay for the book. And so that was my life. Secondary school, I loved literature, loved English, loved going to bookshops. On a Saturday, I would go out with my mom. I'll go to some of these bookshops looking for books. We got all sorts of bargains. So, and then it involved me exchanging books with my friends in school. On a Friday, if I could get two books, that was a great book for the weekend. That means I was settled for the weekend. If I had one book, it was okay. But if I had two books, that means the weekend. So was settled. So that was it. I mean, that was what kept me going with my academics. I didn't really like science subjects and maths. I loved the art subjects. And so, yeah, I never went to boarding house. The only time I was away from home was when I went to university. Okay. So I really had an interesting adolescent riding bicycles. And then at some point, we moved to the research institute my dad worked in, and would ride bicycles, play a lot, go into orchards, did a lot of stuff that had to do with agric because my dad was a um, a soil microbiologist. So yeah, that was some of the things I did as well as a young person.
That's so lovely. So you had the time to be able to play around with books to understand the importance of it. So no wonder you are where you are today.
Yes, it's interesting because I used to jot down all sorts of stories, um, just write stories, and then of course, I don't know if you remember, Obehi, pace setters. Remember the Macmillan pace setters?
Mm-hmm.
We just were reading those. It's sad these days. I don't think it's still on in Nigeria. I think some of them are still online. I checked, was it last year during the pandemic? You still have them online. So that was my life. And of course, the fact that in those days, TV, yes, I've mentioned that TV was not such a dominant. I mean, we didn't have all these social media things, so we didn't have the distractions that a lot of young people have.
All right. So you had this chance to be able to touch book at a point, no? But how did you get started becoming a book publisher? That would be a kind of a transition there. Help us understand that.
Yes, I mean that was so interesting. It's still very fresh in my mind. After my 1 year, when I started my 1 year youth service, I was posted to Anambra State. So for 3 weeks, I was in Anambra State. It's 2.5 or 3 weeks. I was there, and had made up my mind that I wanted to serve in a publishing house. And so, because my dad had connections, he was able to um, use his influence, and I got posted back to Oyo State because I wanted to work in the publishing house. And so my dad took me to his friend, the bless is late now, Chief Sahigo Aigboje. He was the chairman of Heinemann Books, and he took me to him. I remember that day. He saw my credentials and everything, and he just said, "Okay, fine." Just put a message there, wrote a letter and said I should go and meet I should go to the editorial department. And from that day till now, I can remember for one whole year, I was eating, sleeping, and drinking books. Monday to Friday, except Thursday. Thursday, I would go for what you call community development. Okay. And so I didn't need to come to the office. But sometimes I would still come to the office after finishing, my community development, which involved going to the NYC center in the local government, do something, talk about our wages, nothing so important. And then, but throughout that one year, I was involved in publishing. I saw how books were made. I saw how books were published. And I was also taught how to edit books because I started there as an editorial assistant, and I was mentored for one whole year. In fact, during that time, I also went and studied. I did a course in public relations from the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, and so I was just into books and books and books. I saw how books were edited and typeset, and covers were designed. Some of the authors came to our department, and I saw the business. I interacted with salespeople, and I got to know how book launches were done. In fact, we had some big names. For example, the late Shehu Shagari, the president of Nigeria. I was one of the people who worked on his books in a very minimal way. I saw that book, I read some of it, they let me handle some, obviously with supervision, but I was able to look through the manuscript and things like that. And that was what brought me till here. So after that, I then got my first book contract, which was a biography for a family. And since then, I've never looked back.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Now tell me, what really interests you in the process of book production? What really interests you the most?
Now, since I've been a young boy, I've been interested in words. The most interesting part to me are those words on those pages, how the words are put together. I was interested in the language and grammatical prowess of authors, and that was the one of the most important part to me in book production. However, when I came to the UK, I began to dabble and get involved. Not dabble. I really got involved in self-publishing. I'd known about self-publishing since Nigeria. I read a lot about self-publishing. So even though yes, I was trained as an editor, I also got involved working with graphic artists in cover design and page design, as well as getting involved with editors. I could do some myself in editorial work. But it got to a point where obviously sometimes I'll be working on 2 or 3 projects at the same time. So I worked a lot with um, all of these people, the editors, the cover design people, and the layout design. But the words, the finished product, the editorial work was what I really, really got involved with. Yeah.
Then you also said before that you are also a book author. You have written books. Now tell me a bit about your books you're writing.
Yes. After my youth service, I self-published a little book. It's a tiny book, just to see how it's done, and I was given very good guidance by my mentors then, who, had worked earlier, like I said, for a year at Heinemann. So, and then I wrote another book called What They Didn't Teach You at Schools, all self-published. And then at some point, I got a couple of book deals with a company called Evans. I worked with the MD and worked with his editorial team and brought out two books for them, for young people. They were motivational books, but tailored towards secondary school students. And so, I was given an advance. Till today, I earn royalty. I've not been there for a while now, probably over 10 years now. I've gotten royalty there, but if you don't go and check your royalty, because obviously I live in the UK, um, so those are the books I wrote. And then I wrote another book on how to profit. It's called How to Profit from Your Knowledge by Writing a Book. Yeah. So till date, I've written my little book, and then there was a biography I did. Then the other one, What They Didn't Teach You at School. Then those two, about 6 books, yes. So those are the books I've written. I'm interested mainly in the nonfiction genre because I believe that people need to handle certain kinds of information that can transform their lives. So yeah.
And when you say non-fiction, help me understand it. There are some people there, they don't understand what is the difference between the two. Okay, and why do you concentrate on non-fiction?
Well, nonfiction basically means it's true. It could be anything. You could write about law. You could write about health. You could write about money. So nonfiction books are books that contain facts, contain research. Some of them are, most of the well, my audience will be familiar with educational books. Educational books are nonfiction books, and biographies or autobiographies are nonfiction books. Of course, fiction books have to do with, novels, um, fairy tales, adventure, um, anything that has to do with bringing a story together. But it's not true, even though that is a very important genre. In fact, you know, fiction books are very, very popular nowadays. For example, I was reading a report last week about romance novels, fantasy romance novels being a top seller. So, but for nonfiction, it has to do with education. It has to do with sharing your knowledge and sharing your expertise.
Thank you for that. Um, how do you describe your type of writing in terms of the style and your approach generally to writing? Help us break it down.
My writing is very simple and very straightforward. Um, my approach, basically, when I have an idea for a book, what I normally would do is I would write my idea down, and then I would write a rough outline. So I might write an outline for maybe 20 chapters. Then I'll look at the book again, the outline again, and then begin to cut it down. So I might cut it down to maybe 10 or 12 chapters. And then one of the things I will do is then I'll be thinking of the book title, and I'll come up with as many book titles as possible till I exhaust possible titles. And then I'll begin to do a bit of research about looking into what I've written in the outline. And one of the things I also would do is look at the kind of books available in the market in that my area. It's very easy to do now. You can go online and do a bit of research. And so I'll research the kind of books that are in the market, and then I'll begin to get my own stuff together. And then one of the things I will do is I call them my own sources of inspiration. I'll start reading those books. I'll start doing more research, and then I'll just start writing. Write my first chapter. So normally when I'm writing, I'll have all my different sources of inspiration. I'll get immersed in the subject itself, so that when I'm writing, I have this continual flow. That's it. It's very simple. My books are simple. At some point, I'm going to launch my book on Amazon. Um, and it's simple, straightforward, nothing flowery, just direct to the point, but full of facts and full of inspiration and information. So that's my approach to writing books. Very simple. It sounds simple, but not a lot of people, because a lot of people struggle, with writing books. But over the years, I've been able to hone my skills, and I pretty know I know what I'm doing when I'm writing, and I can have an idea of when I will start and finish. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Sydney. Um, the way you say it, the way you talk about it, you really will make somebody want to write book. In that the way you break it down and also the kind of your take on it, it really will make somebody want to consider a book. And I sort of try to say it here quite often that as human beings, we should all write a book. It is important that we put down our idea. Because if you look in history, you could take up a book like The Science of Getting Rich by Walter Wallace. I think that book was written in 1910. Or look at The Richest Man in Babylon. Or you could take up The Art of War, for example. All these people, we are able to learn about them. Or maybe, for example, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Nobody actually know these people anymore. They've long died and gone. But they are still living, really. They are still living with us. They live in the memories of people. People really live in memory. Because there is nothing Napoleon Hill could have done to be living in our memory if he didn't write the book, Think and Grow Rich. Also, because we read The Art of War, that is why we hear of the Chinese general at Shansung. Now, what could he do? What could he have done that would transcend all these years? So I think it is very important that as a people, particularly us and our demographic, which is the African and African diaspora, we must up the game of writing because we have a lot of story that we haven't even scratched the surface. And nobody's coming to do this work for us.
No, nobody. You see, writing is words are so important. Like you said, words will remain in the memories of people. People like Napoleon Hill, people like the person who wrote the Richest Man in Babylon, people like Og Mangidno or something like that. He wrote a book called The Greatest Salesman in the World. Words are so important, and words help you to share ideas. Words help you to share philosophies. When you put them in a book, somebody reads it. Somebody begins to think about those words, begins to think about how to make a change, begins to think about how to make a difference. I'll never forget a book I read many years ago now. That's over 30 years ago, thereabout. My parents, I think my mom and my dad went to the US and they brought me a book. And I remember that book till today because it made a great impression on me. It's called the Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. I don't know if you know that book. It's called, yes, The Power of Positive Thinking. I read that book, and for the very first time, I felt something positive. I felt warm inside. I felt happy. I felt sort of motivated. I didn't know anything about motivation, but I will never forget that book. Even though the man is gone now, in fact, it's probably one of the books I would like to read again. The Power of Positive Thinking. It's one of the pioneer books on motivation. Obviously, there have been hundreds of thousands, if not millions of books written in that same genre. But like you said, books are so powerful. Um, the only way that men will remain amongst us living is through words. Imagine you write a book and maybe you go to bed. Somebody somewhere around the world is reading about your stories, reading about your philosophies, reading about your ideas. That is um, that is the power of almost the power of divinity, if you ask me. That is so powerful. And that's one of the ways people can share ideas. I wish more people would do that. For us in the diaspora, there's a lot of work to do. Writing does not have immediate rewards. And so a lot of people don't do it. And a lot of people do it also for the wrong reasons. And so sometimes when I talk to people, like I try and let them establish why they want to write that book they want to write, the non-fiction book. And but like you said, nobody's going to tell our stories for us. If we don't write the story, or if we don't publish those stories, nobody else will do it for us. So it's very important. It's my mission to help as many people do that.
How do you validate your book topics? Because I particularly like the line that you are in, which is the non-fiction. Uh, Actually, my first book was a fiction book. I think one, two, three. Yeah, I think up to like four, fifth of my books were actually non-fiction. But recently, most of my books are actually no, sorry, we're actually fiction. Recently, most of my books are now non-fiction. Now they are very, uh, they are very, they are targeted argument, no? Like I read the book about how to find your life purpose. That is exactly what the book was talking about. Yeah, it's not a very long book as it were, and also my 5-part book series, the recent one that I've done, which is a 5 book in a series about storytelling. So I think it is a great way that non-fiction writing to be able to make our point in the world, one, and secondly, to be able to add our voice to an important argument, and of course, giving people some actionable step to take to be able to get to a certain objective. No, I'm not saying that if you write a fiction, there's anything wrong with it, but I'm an instructor, so I want to see it this way. This is the way I want to teach. You see, so I really like the line that you are. Now, the question is, how do you know that the topic that you have picked to write is a good one? How do you validate it? Help me understand that.
Well, that's a very good question. Um, we have so much. We have the technology now. For example, um, the book I've written is called "How to Profit from Your Knowledge by Writing a Book." It's about writing books, writing non-fiction books. If you go online, for example, one of the ways you can validate it is go on Amazon and look for similar books. Now, when you see many books doing the same thing, that means that your idea is worth something. Now, some people think because their idea, so many people are doing it, or so many people are writing about it, it means the idea is too common. No. Let me give you a typical example. There is a lot going on in the area of memoir writing. But if you go to Amazon today, you'll see several books. At least you'll see the first top 6 or 7 in memoir writing. So one person has written about memoir writing, somebody else has written about memoir writing. You see several books or many books in that area. It's a way to validate the fact that your topic is viable. Excuse me, there are other technologies. There's software called Ask the Public. You understand? A lot of people in PR or digital marketing, they do that. It's a software. There's a free version of it. You type your question into that software. This is free advert I'm doing for them. They should be paying me for this. You type your question into this software, And it will come out with how many people have asked that question, the different categories. And if you want to pay for if you want to have the paid subscription, it has a much more detailed report. So the easiest and the cheapest way is go on the internet or go on Amazon and look for books in the area that you want to write about. And if you find many books in that area, that's a validation. It means that a lot of people um, actually think it's a. It basically it means that a lot of people are buying those books. You understand? That means there is a market in that area. Let me give you a typical example. In the area of let's say fitness, just in the area of fitness, if you type fitness into the search engine on Amazon, you're going to see loads and loads and loads of books. However, each person is probably treating a different area of fitness. For example, some people can be talking about fitness between for people in their middle age, let's say from 40 to 65. You understand? Some people can be talking about fitness for Afro Americans. Some people can be talking about fitness for, let's say, vegetarians. So when you do your search on Amazon, you're going to see a lot of books. That's a lot of free research. So that's one of the best ways to validate your ideas.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. I really do. Now, in your writing, do you sometimes get to a point that you are not able to continue, what they usually call maybe a writer block sometime, where you are sort of confused, you don't know what to do? Have you ever had to deal with that? If any, how do you deal with it?
Most of the time, I don't think I've ever had writer's block. If I have writer's block, maybe it's because I'm tired, or maybe I need to do a bit more research. Now, writer's block has mostly to do with a lot of people who have writer's block probably are people who write in the genre of fiction. But you can have writer's block as a non-fiction person as well. But to deal with writer's block, you have to put a lot of planning into your book. And that's one of the things I always tell my clients. You can deal with writer's block by detailed planning of your book to the extent that you know what is going to be in every chapter, every book, in the beginning, middle, and the end of every chapter. So writer's block is it does happen, but it shouldn't be something that is long, should be drawn out. It shouldn't be something that it should happen to a writer for a long time if they have planned their book. So for me, maybe fatigue, maybe I just need to walk away from the book for a while and come back to it. Another mistake people make is they think they have writer's block because they are not able to write anything. Most of the time, it's just because they have not planned their book. So they are of the assumption that they should depend on on inspiration, on some sort of a muse to to write, and that's not a professional author. Somebody who writes professionally knows that they don't have to feel they have to write. They don't have to depend on any kind of muse to write. A professional author. I remember there's an author. I don't know if you know this author, Obehi. His name is John Morrow. He's an American. Do you know John Morrow? If you type into your internet, Jon, then Morrow with a double, he's one of the best writers in the world. Funny enough, he's paralyzed. He has what you call muscle dystrophy. So his muscles are really damaged. So he's on a wheelchair, and he writes. He uses his mouth to write. There's a way he uses his mouth because his muscles have been really damaged. It's a some sort of genetic or congenital thing. So this guy says, I remember reading it some years ago, that he writes every day, including, he said he was ashamed, or he put some humor around it. He said even on Christmas Day. That is a writer. He said on Christmas Day, even if you write 1,000 words every day, and people who write professionally, it doesn't matter what they write, they just write. And so that's one of the ways of dealing with it, with writer's block.
Thank you so much for that. That is really important. So I was saying in the book I made mention of before, in the how to find your life purpose, I was saying, sometimes people think that they need to do what other people are doing to be counted. But I say, well, you don't necessarily need to do what other people are doing. You need to do what you want to do, what you have to do. Because sometimes we have a mission to accomplish in this world. The mission that you have is not necessarily the mission other people have. How can you be doing what other people, just because other people are doing it? What if you do not have the same mission? So we are going to find our purpose. If you are supposed to sing, it doesn't mean because nobody comes to listen to you, you shouldn't sing anymore. You are supposed to sing. Don't you get that? Because if you are supposed to sing, you don't say, "Oh, nobody is here to motivate me now, so I don't want to sing." Oh, come on. When the mission was given to you, other people were not giving to you as an assignment to motivate you. Look for a way to motivate yourself. You're going to have to sing every day because you are supposed to sing. Perhaps they're not going to call you to Carnegie Hall to sing. If they call you, that is a good thing. But if they don't call you, you are still going to sing. Because that is your mission. Yeah. So you were saying something also very important, which is something that I reflect a lot here, because I talk a lot with a lot of Nigerians and people of Africans that are in Africa, including those, of course, in the diaspora. When it comes to content creation, that, okay, you could have your book published, of course, set it up on Amazon, and they will pay you your royalty. Have you sort of reflect with some people in Nigeria if they are able to do the same and easily? Say maybe somebody in Lagos or in Benin have written a book and they want to make sure this book is available on Amazon. Do they have the possibility of doing it this way we can do it here? Share with me, please.
Yeah. Amazon is a very interesting platform. For people in Nigeria, at most, they have very limited access in terms of if they're able to publish on Amazon. What most people do is use the services of publishers who provide, or people who provide publishing services, and then they can put it on Amazon. Or sometimes what people do is they can get an address abroad and register that address on Amazon. But the thing that Amazon is very particular about is, especially in the West, is having the your tax number. In the UK, it's called the national NI number, national insurance number. In the US, there's a special tax identity kind of thing. In Nigeria, it's difficult because obviously Amazon is concerned about the kind of how they're going to get their money, the deduction. Because Amazon is a US company, they need to be able to deduct, their royalty. And obviously the laws in the US affect them. But they've been able to do that in many countries. But in Nigeria, it's difficult. At the moment, I don't think it's possible to do that directly, because some of the authors I've worked with, they are not able to do that. So what they do is they use other platforms. But as of now, for Amazon, no, they are not able to publish directly to Amazon. So sometimes they work with people like myself and we put it. I have clients who, I have a client at the moment whose book is on my own platform. And because she's not able to do it directly in from Nigeria. So that's the big challenge with Amazon. But that shouldn't be a problem. There are many other people one can work with who will be able to do that for them and put it online.
But I really wish, because this is an argument that come up a lot of time within our sector, within our industry, of course, because we are in the content creation industry, and we feel what our brothers and sisters are feeling in Africa, because they have the possibility of able to create the content, but sometimes they are not able to enter into the market and also leverage it, because I believe that the internet should really be a leveler for everybody, wherever you might find yourself. If you are in Enugu, you should have the same advantage as somebody that is in California. At least this will make you feel more comfortable being in Enugu, because so that you can become the storyteller in Enugu. You can be telling stories of Enugu. But of course, you should be able to earn money also. It doesn't mean that you tell the story, there's somebody in New York is the only one that can benefit from it. So if this is a problem for us, how can we solve it? Yesterday, I was talking with another content creator, a journalist in Nigeria. So we were saying, maybe we need to talk to our IT individual. Of course, I know I've interviewed also a lot of ITs in Africa, and people, IT experts in Africa, who are working out ways to be able to make sure that we can also leverage this creative economy. What do you think when you talk to people? Like, what can be the alternative to Amazon, to the Googles of the world, to YouTube, so that they cannot just simply kick us out anytime? We should have an alternative, so that we want to be able to play in the game. But don't make it too hard for me because I'm in Nigeria, or I am in South Africa, or I'm in Congo. No, give me the same level play field. I want to play, but allow me the same game to play. What do you have to say about that?
The best, I used to think about things like this myself. The best way to do that is to have our own platform, that is created for Africans and run by Africans. However, what we can also do is we can also collaborate with people like Amazon, if it's going to work, and work with them to make our books visible. However, we don't have to. Amazon is one platform. What we can do is to create our own platform. Somebody has to step up and put that platform. For example, we have platforms like Okada Books. I'm not sure if you've heard about Okada Books. Then you have different platforms, but we need to create our own platforms because we've got the content, we've got the population, and the know-how is there as well. But we need people who will be able to take on all that, or create their own platform, create our own platform. Let me give you an example. In China, I remember I was teaching Chinese students in the summer, in July. In China, they have their own type of Facebook. Do you know? Facebook is not the most popular. It's not the most popular social media network. In China, my students, they showed me they have their own Facebook. They have their own alternative to Twitter. But it means that there are tech entrepreneurs who are also government backed, who are able to create that platform and be successful. So we need that kind of mentality in Africa. Too many of us, we're too addicted to all these Western things. We need to be able to say, you know what, we're going to create our own platform and we want our people to back us up. We're going to have that same effect because Africa has so much to offer in terms of content. And so that is one alternative. The problem is also for Amazon, I think it might also have to do a lot with our government. Let me give you an example. Many years ago, this was probably, it could be 12 to 15 years ago. I went to PayPal. I had I was invited to do a small talk at PayPal. You know PayPal. And one of the things I asked them is, why is it so difficult? Why is it almost impossible? At one time when PayPal became available, a lot of Nigerians used PayPal. It was possible, and then some things happened that had to do with compliance or fraud, and then Nigerians were sort of locked out of PayPal. But I asked this lady, I remember that time, she told me that it had something to do with our government and monetary regulations. And that's one of the reasons why PayPal was not, at that time, was not able to operate, freely in Nigeria. But I think you can open a PayPal account in Nigeria now, and there are some, you're able to use it. But I think there are still some restrictions, or there are certain limits on it. So yes, we have to create our own platforms and make sure that we have the backing of people. We have the population in Africa. We can do it successfully. Definitely, that's a solution.
Thank you for that. That is really very important. It's an argument that we can never be tired of talking about. We must keep on talking about it because we want our people to be able to benefit. This is a global economy. We shouldn't be punished unnecessarily for goodness sake. It is not fair. It is not fair. All right, now the power of content in building authority. What do you have to say? Because of course that is where we are now. We want people to be able to create content. I want them to be able to leverage the content too. I was listening to a YouTube video the other day. I was seeing this woman in India. She's an old woman almost, She just started to talk about food, how she cook her food, not the extraordinary. People like her. She got millions of subscribers to her channel. That woman is made for life. In that, because she now have audience, she can then monetize the audience. Now, help me. The power of content creation in building your authority, because this is something somebody can also be doing, whether you are in Kinshasa, whether you are in Ivory Coast, in Ghana, in Nigeria, in South Africa, or wherever you might find yourself in Africa, or even in the diaspora. Because of course, we African in the diaspora, we're not so much disconnected from the Africans at home. We know what is going on. So we need to also build this interconnected and to be able to leverage it more. We need to profit more from who we are. Yeah. Help me.
One thing I tell my clients is you've got to own your message. You talked about writing a book about, how to find your purpose. So, number one, you've got to own your message. Now, there is a saying, it's in the Bible. It says, there's nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun. So, in other words, no message is original. However, each person has a way of presenting his or her message. So, number one thing is own your message. Internalize your message. Eat, sleep, and drink your message. That's number one thing. Then, being an author, that word author means, is also from where you get the word authority. Okay? As you begin to show up, for example, on YouTube or on podcasts, over time, it will snowball. But that very first point about owning your message, you should be known for something. Okay? And that's one thing about building credibility. Over time, that thing you are known for will snowball and people will get to trust you. And that's the power of YouTube. I remember there's a book I'm reading now. It's on YouTube, one of the greatest authorities on YouTube. But you must own that message. And that's one of the things about credibility. Once you own your message, the sky is not even your limit. You can go in 1,000 directions. You understand? So number one, owning your message. Number two, showing up, just like you're doing. And that's one of the things that attracted you to me. I saw your consistency. And that's one of the things I need to learn because I have a very busy schedule. but I've decided I'm going to be more consistent. So owning your message, you have one message. You talk a lot about storytelling and then showing up. Over time, that ownership and that ability to show up will snowball, and then there will be benefits that will follow after that.
Now, there is something also that I found very interesting that I would like you to speak on. It had to do with the business side of book publishing.
Mm.
Can you please share something with us there? Somebody listening to you now, and the person sort of got motivated and they want to start book publishing. So help this individual understand what is the business side of book publishing.
Let me tell you a story, since you like stories. 3 weeks ago, somebody was referred to me. He's a Polish poet, um, essayist. He also writes prose. He's also a translator. He's in his 80s, I believe. He was very unhappy with his publishers. So he has had publishers who have published him before, but they will not publish him again. They will not run a reprint of his books. He's very passionate about Polish literature, and he has translated many works from Polish to English. And he's very well read. He's studied in places like the University of Oxford. He's a heavyweight. One of the things I did when I eventually spoke with him after we exchanged several emails is that publishers are in the business to make money. So there is the art of writing, but there is also the business of writing. You've got to ask yourself, how can I monetize what I'm writing? How can I monetize anything for my client? Yes, you can write, but remember, if you want to make a living out of this, you've got to find a way to make money out of this. And so one of the biggest things about publishing is the ability to market your books and to make your books available to as many people as possible, and also to build a brand around your books or around yourself so that your brand extends to your book. So the business of publishing is different from writing itself. And so you've got to understand it. And you've got to find ways of marketing your books and selling your books. That's not the only way. A book, for example, if I sell a book for, let's say, $10, this is just an hypothetical, is an example. And let's say on Amazon is 60-40 share, 70-30. So let's say it's $10. I'll get $6. Amazon is going to get $4. How many books do you need to sell to make some? You have to sell hundreds of thousands, possibly millions, to make a good living. However, that's not the only way you can make money. Your book can also become a coaching system. Your book can become a course. Your book can become an audiobook. Your book can become consulting. Your book can become a workshop. Do you understand? So the business of publishing itself is a proper business. So you've got to be able to look at it from that perspective. So if you want to get into book publishing, you've got to think very hard, because it's not an easy business. Because publishers, okay, are in the business of making money. And so my friend, the person that was referred to me, I made him understand that the reason why you are not being published or reprinted is because they don't feel they're going to make much money out of this. And so they've got to look at the numbers. If the numbers don't work for them, they're not going to publish a book. So in publishing, you've got to look at, how am I going to market these books and sell as many books as possible? Because there's no point doing it After writing it, you've got to make sure you are able to get those books into the hands of as many people as possible. And so you've got to run it like a proper business. Okay. You've got to have the marketing side, the PR. You've got to know your numbers when it comes to printing. You've got to know your numbers when it comes to doing online marketing and ads and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Right. From that point, I think you would like to talk a bit about your coaching, your book coaching. Please share something with us.
Yes. My book coaching is interesting. I have something called Preparing to Publish. So it's a 5-week book coaching session I do with clients because I discovered that asking someone to write a book is a very big ask. Or someone who wants to write a book, sometimes they don't realize what it's going to take out of them. And so to bridge that gap between the reality of your written and published book from when you have not written anything, I've done this book coaching thing called Preparing to Publish to help you create a roadmap from where you are to where you want to be. So it involves discovering what you want to write about, why you want to write about it, who your audience is, developing your book title, developing an outline, even writing sample chapters. So by the time I finish with you, you will be inspired. You will know the steps to take to write your book. Or even if you don't want to write your book yourself, you will have a brief of what you can give a ghostwriter. So that's what my book coaching is about. So it's called Preparing to Publish, and it's very effective. One of my authors, in fact, one of my clients, we had to tell him to slow down the writing because he just kept on writing. I pressed his book button, so to speak. I was able to activate something. I was able to help him see something within himself, and he just went on and just kept writing. So I have that kind of effect. After that, after my book coaching session is 5 weeks. That's just one of the things I do in terms of book coaching.
Now, people want to reach you. They want to do business with you. Please share with them how they can reach you. What are the best ways to connect with you?
Okay, very simple. One of the best ways to connect with me is my email is Sidney, that is Sidney at Sidney Sanni, that's SIDNEYSANNI.com, Sidney at SidneySanni.com, or go to www.publishingbrain.com, www.publishingbrain.com. And before I forget, on the 6th and 7th of October, I'm doing an online publishing summit. If you go to publishingsummit.com, the publishingsummit.com, all of the details will be there. So if you want to reach me by email, it's Sidney, that's SIDNEY, at Sidney, that's SIDNEY, and then S Sugar Alpha November Indigo.com, Sidney at SidneySanni.com. Very easy, and I will respond. Yeah.
All right, people got that, so they are going to certainly respond to you. Thank you so much for the sharing there, Sidney.
Yes.
All right, so what would be your final thought here, considering what we have discussed today?
Well, think about what your mark is going to be on the world when you leave the scene. Do you have an idea to share? Do you have a philosophy to share? Do you have an expertise to share? Why don't you put it in book form as the first step? The book is just the first step towards influencing people. So put something down. Put your expertise, your knowledge, and your experience within a book, and the world will be better for it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you. This will be a lot of value here, and I know that Our audience are happy for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Obehi. Thanks for the opportunity.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. Thank you so much for listening, and talk to you in the next episode.